Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Blue Stable. I am yours truly, Culture Shock. We are here tonight to chat with you guys a little bit about some little speculations going around Indianapolis Colts. Of course, the season is over, but we got some news to share with you guys. Um, that we're going to share with you today. I'm not here alone. I got my guy Landon with me. Landon, how we doing tonight?
Doing fantastic, man. Senior Bowl week, of course. Unfortunately, me and you aren't there this week or this year, but we are represented down there with a great group of guys and hope they're having fun. Looks like Chris Ballard's down there, Shane Steichen's down there, all the quarterbacks down there. Everybody's down there except for us having fun. But, that's just the way the world works sometimes. So, uh, yeah, just excited because now that Senior Bowl's here, it means we're officially getting closer to the NFL draft.
Absolutely, absolutely. Shout out to Noah and Lucas is out there. There's a bunch of Colts content creators out there. Shout out to all of those guys, Destin, Rashad, everybody out there, pushing their content, especially draft related. Of course, yeah, we couldn't be out there, but the 1 year we're not there, everybody's there. So I just feel like
Exactly.
so left out. I was like, this is the worst timing that I could ever think about not going. But it is what it is. It's all right. We still, got access to everything else, but we still being represented fairly well. Colts season's over. Super Bowl week is almost here. But 49ers and Chiefs, man, that's going to be a good one. But let's go ahead and hop into some Colts news today. Before we go on and talk about the real news, which is the coaching staff, Landon, we got something to talk about. The Colts got some Pro Bowlers. The
That's
Colts
right, we
got some
do.
Pro Bowlers. When we was here last time, we were talking about how somebody got left off in DeForest Buckner, but due to certain situations, they got four Pro Bowlers now. I'm gonna say the last one, the best one for last, but we got Ryan Kelly, Quentin Nelson. We already knew. We got DeForest Buckner finally added, and last but not least, the one that shocked everybody, but I'm truly happy for it. Gardner Minshew is a Pro Bowler. Landon, how we feeling?
That's right, man. It's just uh I don't really know. I don't know what to say to that. It just, the Pro Bowl is what it is. But yeah, I made a tweet earlier trying to troll a little bit, just trying to
Mm-hmm.
get some people. Um, it didn't work near as well as what I thought it would. So that's what I was saying is like either, at this point, like everybody knows me well enough now to know that it's a troll job, or the fan base is very intelligent. They're very smart. They know it's BS. So um yeah, but I mean congrats to Gardner though. I mean, anytime you can, get that because I'm sure now that adds some kind of money
It's off
triggers
season,
in his
yep.
contract or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. So those guys should at least, get a little bit of a pay bump, which is always a good thing.
Exactly. That's the first thing I thought about when he got called up to make the alternate roster for the Pro Bowls, so he could be in there. I was like, man, the fact that he's going to be available in this free agency. I know teams are like, well, he did make the Pro Bowl, so I mean that's got to be a nod somewhere. And to be honest, like we got to give credit where credit is due. Gardner Minshew didn't have the best season, even though it was a roller coaster year, but we were one play away from making the playoffs. So I think that says a lot to not only him but to Coach Shane Steichen as well. So I definitely give credit to both of those guys and that offense. It was a roller coaster season, but in general, as a backup quarterback, I was fine with Gardner Mitchell's performance, and the fact that he got notified to make the Pro Bowl was pretty freaking awesome, especially to know that he's the last Colts quarterback since Andrew Luck to make the Pro Bowl after all the quarterback carousels we've been through. I am thankful for Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, which really too, I mean, if you think about it, it does kind of take a little bit of the luster off of Shane Steichen, like
Mhm.
what he did this year. Like, can we really say that he deserves to be in the coach of the year conversation whenever he couldn't even the playoffs with a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback? I
Exactly.
mean, like, did he really do that good of a job? He has a Pro Bowl quarterback. Couldn't even
As
make
a
the
backup,
playoffs.
imagine what
Yeah.
he would have did with the starter.
Yeah. Well, if you listen to some people, well,
It's insane when you think about it. The backup quarterback
just
makes the Pro Bowl.
yep.
It's
Hey,
crazy. What a
I
year to
think
be a
that says
Colts
more
fan.
about the Pro Bowl than it does about.
I know it literally does,
And
but
it
we
seemed to
keep taking
happen
away
on the
from that.
field.
Hey, it's an accolade, so I'm gonna stick with it. But it is what it is. But let's go ahead and hop into the real news. We got to talk about these coaching staff changes, and these are some pretty big ones in my opinion. I know you got a lot to talk about with this first one. So we're going to talk about the biggest one in my opinion. The Colts defensive line coach Nate Ollie, a guy I happened to meet at the coach training camp with Luke, the photographer. Shout out to Luke. We met Nate Ollie down there at the training camp, and I think the defensive line had a big upgrade this year compared to what they did last year, especially with the talent that they brought in. I think Nate did a fantastic job with his short time in Indianapolis. And, the news came out that he will not be coming back to Indianapolis. It's definitely a shocking news for me when I heard it. And I'm kind of worried going into next season to see who we're going to bring in and what the Colts are going to do in general. So let me just hear your thoughts on Coach Nate Ollie and this offensive line and the Colts moving forward.
Yeah, well, to me, like it was very shocking for sure because this is a team that just broke the franchise record for sacks. Um, on the flip side of that, though, they were near the bottom of the league in pressures per game, and they haven't really seen the development out of guys like Quiddy Pay as far as getting after the passer and stuff like that. That they've wanted to. Most of all of their production, like the best signings and the best type of production they've had in the pass rush has come from guys that have been signed from the outside that were already, productive that have come in, already developed like DeForest Buckner, Samson Ebukam, Justin Houston's another one, um, Danico Autry's another one. So they haven't really found the right process of developing their own high caliber level pass rusher. So that's kind of maybe what I think um, happened. I think they just wanted to go in a different direction. But I thought, given with what he had to work with this year, um, because the Colts still, they're one of those teams like they just don't have an elite edge rush guy that gets consistent pressure. That's the one thing they're really lacking along that defensive line. And I thought Nate Ollie did a really good job, with what he had there. So it was kind of shocking to see him go, especially after the performance that group had this season. Statistically, not maybe necessarily on film, but statistically, they did a very good job. And I'm just kind of curious to see how they go about replacing, because Gus Bradley's still here, most everybody is returning, so it'll be weird to kind of see how they go about addressing that without addressing kind of some of like the key concerns with the defense, such as like the scheme and lack of aggressiveness and stuff like that. Because I thought that held the defense back more than anything Nate Ollie did. And to see them not address that aspect, but address one of the few bright spots of the defense and move in a different direction, it's just kind of confusing. So we'll kind of just monitor and see. There's been a lot of coaching changes for sure around the league, which means there are a lot of really good assistant coaches and teachers that are available. So I'll be keeping my eye out to see where they land with a guy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, I think, in all honesty, I think the defensive line, um, it take a step up from what there was last year because I think last year was even worse. But it can always be better for sure. Like there was a bunch of times where we just did not see the pass rush at all, and it put us in a position to lose a lot of these games going into the season because pass rush is very important, very important. So hopefully the Colts, make a splash in the coaching staff and find someone. Maybe they can go somewhere, maybe young or from the college scene, and maybe get some athletic guys to go with it. So we're gonna look forward to seeing what they're gonna do. Another guy that we got rid of, that we lost. I'm sorry, is Mike Mitchell, the defensive back coach, and the defensive back coach. I think the DBs, they could have been better, but I think we've seen a lot of polished gameplay. There was some ups and downs, but when you look at the young group, we had one of the youngest cores in the NFL, and what they did this year was very impressive, in my opinion. Juju, Jalen Jones, all these guys, even like from get go from training camp. Like these guys, day one went in there and they balled out. They played some top receivers this year, and I think they did a pretty decent job. So to see him go as another guy, it's like, man, what are they going to do? So let me get your thoughts on on that whole situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, the main DB coach, Ron Miles, I think he's gonna still be around. They're just kind of replacing the assistant DB coach. It was a very tough year for this secondary. Youth, injuries, you name it. What could have went wrong did go wrong. Suspensions, all kinds of just stuff like that. And it's hard to be successful on Sundays whenever you have all that stuff happening. I do think the DB group they have now, I think they still need an infusion of talent, but I do think some of the pieces are there. Um, to be talented, like Julius Brents, obviously a talented player, Jalen Jones. While I don't necessarily think he's ready yet to be like a starter in this league, I think he can be, top notch depth. The safety position, of course, they had some struggles, especially after Blackman went down. Uh, so I mean, it's just one of those things. Like that's really the key area this offseason that they need to address is in that secondary. They have some talented pieces, but they really need to add more talent and preferably some veteran leadership in that room. You know, Kenny, of course, is a free agent as well. Like, we'll see if he's going to be re-signed. Hopefully so, because he was one of the lone really like bright spots for me. One of the lone bright spots in that room. And then really, these guys just need to get healthy. Like, I mean, I know everybody's like excited for Julius Brents, and he did have some really good moments on the field, but you know, you got to be available. You got to practice. You got to play. Like, you're not going to get better playing that position whenever you're injured and rehabbing constantly. So I think that's kind of the next step is like once he gets healthy. I mean, this is a guy that missed all of training camp as well. So we'll see, kind of once he gets healthy, if he can take that next step. I think he's got the talent to do it for sure. Um, and then, if they can add another boundary corner, um, you know, and kind of address that safety position a little bit as well, I think there's a chance this room could be very much improved depending on how this offseason goes.
I agree 100%. And you're literally saying pretty much what Chris Ballard was saying at the end of the season presser. Especially on Juju, staying healthy and being
He
available.
did say that. I just didn't
Yeah.
realize.
So
Yeah, he did
that's
actually say that.
definitely. So that's
Yeah.
that's 100% correct, man. So we'll be looking forward to seeing this next year what we're gonna do. And mentioning this offseason, it's a great point to go to. The Colts got a very nice spot in the draft next year. And Colts fans are used to the Colts, trading back and doubling up on picks and getting some really good talent later on in the draft. But I wanted to get your thoughts now that you know that you have your franchise quarterback in Anthony Richardson, and you have the salary cap to spend all you want in free agency to add to this roster, including veteran presence in which you just spoke of. What do you do in the draft if you are the Colts? Do you trade back? Do you stay at this pick? What do you do?
I mean, really, it just depends on how the board falls, honestly. Luckily with this draft is, very quarterback heavy in the top, first round of the draft. There are a ton of offensive tackles, the top first half of the draft, which means there's a good chance you're going to have some very good players pushed down, to you at two spots that the Colts already have secured, hopefully for the long haul, at that offensive tackle position and at quarterback. So, um, you know, it really just depends on where the board falls. Like if Brock Bowers is there, you probably take him. If, Dallas Turner ends up falling, the edge rusher, like, you probably take him. Um, there's a lot of really talented players in this draft, a lot of wide receivers. If Romo Dunes, uh, if he falls, you probably end up taking him. So really, it's just depends on where the board or the board falls on draft night. And 15, because of the nature of the wide receiver, quarterback, offensive tackle class this year is so top heavy, and they're all going to get pushed up into that top 10, top 12 spot. you have a chance, like I said, setting at 15, like you can have like a really special player that falls down that board that could be sitting there at 15. And I don't think you want to take the chance of trading back before you know where you're going to pick, and who's there on the board. If you trade down and that guy ends up being there at 15 and you don't get him because you just made a move just to make a move, then that can really come back and bite your franchise. So I think it's one of those things where you just kind of play it by ear, um, and see what happens. And really, free agency is going to be a big part of that as well. Um, they Colts have a lot of guys that they need to re-sign if they want them to, bring back Grover, Julian Blackman, Michael Pittman Jr., Kenny, we just mentioned. There's a lot of guys that they're, if they want back, and I think they should be back, that they're going to have to re-sign. So that kind of limits, um, you know, a little bit of that money to, where you can go in free agency and free agency just in general. I've never been like a huge free agent guy. It's more like name value, but there's so much more that goes into it just in saying like, oh, this guy was a really good player at this spot. Like let's throw a ton of money at him and he's just going to plug right in and be a really great player here. Like you don't know how they're going to fit in the locker room. You don't know how they're going to fit in the scheme. You don't know how they're going to fit with his coaching staff and, the players that are already here. There's a lot that goes on to, into it. Like I always try to preach, we're dealing with real life human beings, man. Like this isn't Madden. Like this isn't, these are guys like they're having to uproot their kids, uproot their families, find a new home, get new furniture, find out where the train, like a lot of these guys that get here, they don't even know where to go to get training. They don't even know, where to go to get their groceries. Like there's a whole human element that gets just overlooked in free agency. And, it's just one of those things. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. But as far as the draft goes, I think you stick at 15. And I think you see where the board falls. And if, there's some players that are really high up on your board that get snatched up, right before you pick, and then you're sitting there at pick, 14 or 15, and you've got 3 or 4 guys that are kind of in the same group, there, you can trade down, 3 or 4 picks back and get some more value and still land one of those guys in that group, then yeah, you do it. But I think you just have to wait and see. That's
I
just how I
agree.
do it.
I agree 100%. And man, you preaching to the choir, man, for sure, as you always do. That's why I love you being here. But definitely, when it comes to free agency, I think continuity is more important than just the name coming out of there, especially talent wise. Of course, there's going to be talented players there, but a lot of guys that are in free agency aren't really available. They're just going out there to test the market. So the only person that'll probably do that is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I mean they went out there and spent a lot of bucks, but it was worth it. But they still did not do what they were supposed to do at the end of the
Yeah,
day. So
they didn't even make the playoffs this year.
exactly. So it's
So I
like
mean,
they just,
like
of
we've seen
course, the
time and
rich
time
gets
again,
richer,
these
but
teams. Yeah, I mean, like we see time and time again, like these teams go out and spend all this money on all these players, and what do you have to show for it?
nothing.
Most of the time, not a lot. And there's there's this like disconnect too right now. We're saying like, oh, we need to go get this guy. This guy's going to be a free agent. You know, a lot of times these upper tier players that are unrestricted free agents, they're not going to hit the market. Like these guys never hit the market.
Right.
They're either re-signed long term or they're franchise tagged, and they're never available to even go after. So, it's just like I said, it's just got to be one of those things. You just kind of wait and see how it plays out, and you can kind of pine and want who you are. Like, would I love to have Brian Burns? Would I love to have
Right.
Josh Allen? And would I love to have this guy and this guy? Yeah, it would be great. But the reality is like most of the time those guys are great players. Like teams just don't let those guys walk out the door.
That's right, 100%. So let's get that continuity, bring our guys back, and I think I'm more confident this year in the draft, especially just of how last draft went out. Even though everyone's pretty much hurt out of that draft class, I think we had a very solid draft, and we traded back and we found a guy like Josh Downs in there who happens to be a very good wide receiver. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do this year. If they trade back, I'm totally fine with that. If they stay there and get, the guy that we need on either side, I'm pretty sure they're going to do it. I trust the Colts front office this offseason more than ever. And that's the first time I'm actually saying that. And I can actually believe with confidence that they're going to do what they need to do to get this team right because we almost made the playoffs this year without, having half the roster because of injuries. So I can just imagine what they're going to do next year with adding, in the off season like they did this year when they added Ibukam in free agency. The biggest splash probably, and none of that was expected. So I have a lot of
Yeah,
faith in
but
this
here's
front office.
yeah, well, like here's the other like kicker with too as well. Like, I should have like I've kind of talked on this. Like, the Colts weren't the only team that were dealing with like injuries, and you're gonna get some of these guys back that are like playoff like the Bengals. They're gonna get Joe Burrow back. Do you think
Right.
that team's gonna miss the playoffs again? The Chargers. They just hired John Harbaugh. Do you think you know you don't know where that team's at? Like they could be great year one. That's a Jim Harbaugh's a guy that he's won every stop he's went to. Um, I mean Houston, they've got a ton of cap space. They're going to be right there. Jacksonville, they could improve. We don't know what they're going to be like. Like there's so many other. I mean, look at how many starting quarterbacks were injured this year.
Half the season, yeah, half the
Yeah,
roster. I mean, half the
yeah. So I mean, like
organization in
these are
the
guys that
NFL.
are going to
Yeah.
be back next year. Like it's not going to get easier. Just to me, like everybody just going ahead and like penciling in the Colts for a playoff spot, where it's like, well, we almost made the playoffs this year, and now like we get Anthony Richardson, and our roster is going to be healthy. All those other teams, they're going to be healthier too. They're going to get their starting quarterbacks back. They're like, I mean, they also have a ton of cap space. Like that's why like I think for whatever reason like I kind of got pushback on it, which I think is just kind of stupid because it's just Twitter troll accounts that don't
Off
know
on
what they're
social
talking
media.
about. Yeah, like it's there, you don't know what you're talking about. You just want to complain. But the reality is like this is probably the most pressure Chris Ballard has ever been on in his career is this upcoming season. Like,
Mhm.
this is one of those things where it's like, look, you can't have the excuse anymore of like, you didn't get to pick your quarterback. You didn't get to pick your head coach. You didn't get to, sign this player because you didn't have the money. You don't have, a, top half draft pick. Like you have all those things this year. You have done all those things. If you go out another year and you miss the playoffs, you don't win the division, you're finishing third, fourth in the division again, like that seat's going to get hot real quick. And that's why I think like he's under a lot of pressure this offseason. Like you have to make some moves to make yourself competitive. Because we've seen it countless times where these, like I was saying earlier, like where these teams, they've got, this quarterback's out, this quarterback's hurt, and then they get those guys back next year. And like, does anybody expect Cincinnati with Joe Burrow to not be in the playoff picture next year?
Right.
Do we expect the Ravens to not be there? Deshaun Watson coming back to the Cleveland Browns, who made the playoffs,
Right.
won
Without
12
him.
games. Yeah, like which I mean, I don't know. The way he played, that actually might be a bad
Yeah, a
thing.
blessing in disguise.
Yeah. But like there's a lot of teams, Josh Allen the Bills, Tua and the Dolphins, um, the Jets, they get Aaron Rodgers back next year.
It's like legit
Nobody's even talking about
12
that.
teams.
Yeah, like I mean, this is gonna be a tough season to make the playoffs. And then obviously you've got Kansas City. Like we said, Jim Harbaugh was just hired to
Yep.
pair with Justin Herbert. Like it might not happen this year due to their like team and cap situation, but like going forward, like that team's going to be dangerous. You're going to have to play against that team record wise to get into the postseason.
Yeah.
So the AFC is just continues to be loaded. And if you're not aggressive and you just sit back and you're like, well, we almost made the playoffs, let's just get our guys healthy and let's just see what happens. Like, you're not going to get anywhere in this conference. You got to be aggressive. You got to go for it now. So you have the tools, get it done.
Absolutely, 100%, man. It has been a long time since 2007, but Indiana, they're looking up, man. Basketball's looking nice. Now it's just time for football to get on the same track, and we gonna be partying for real, man. But in due time, like I said, I'm very patient, and I do have faith this season. So I do think it's possible,
Maybe
for
I'm not,
sure.
man. My patience has run out. I'm
I think
tired
I'm
of
like the most patient out of everybody, honestly.
man. Like it's been 10 years since they've won the division. It's been 5, 6. This is going in year 6 since they've you know made the postseason, won the postseason. Well, they did with Philip Rivers, but they didn't win a postseason game. So this is going into year 6 that they've won a playoff game. Like,
Yeah,
dude, it's time.
it's definitely time.
It's
And
time.
you can it's like, can you almost feel it though? Like just I don't know. It's just me being positive minded because this year, like I said, this year I had the when we did our schedule prediction, I probably had the highest win percentage out of everybody. But I just feel like we're like almost there in the brink of it. Like you can feel like they're
Oh
like
yeah,
the shift's
yeah,
about to change for some
yeah.
reason.
I mean, they've got the coach. They presumably, like I think, and a lot of people think, and some people might disagree, but like they've got the quarterback. I really
Mm,
do believe in
yes.
Anthony Richardson as the quarterback if he can stay on the field. So you've got the coach, you've got the quarterback, you've got some talent on both sides of the ball. Really good offensive line, Jonathan Taylor. They have some really talented pieces, but my whole thing is like you can't get complacent in the AFC South. You can't just sit back and it's like, well, let's just let these guys grow another year together and see what happens. Like you have to be aggressive
Yep.
in adding
This is the
talented
time to build
pieces.
around them. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the single biggest advantage in the NFL is if you have a franchise quarterback on a rookie deal, you have
Mm-hmm.
to take advantage of it while you can. Because if
100%
Anthony
agree.
Richardson does end up being the guy and he pans out and he hits that ceiling, that just absolute massive ceiling he has, you're going to be paying out a number. You know, it starts with a
Kmart
five.
money, like
Yeah,
soccer
five,
money or
5 or a
baseball money.
6. That number is going to start with a 5 or a 6.
Yeah.
Per year. So, um, yeah, you got to take advantage of it while you can.
Absolutely agree, man. But you guys let us know your thoughts in the comment section. That's pretty much all we got for you guys. But like once again, before we get up out of here, shout out to all the Pro Bowlers. Shout out to Gardner Minshew. I'm just glad we got more than one person in there. Even though we still missing one in Zaire Franklin, but it is what it is.
Crazy.
He's gonna come back. He's gonna come back better than I'm pretty sure. Consistency is key. So you gotta play with a purpose. So hopefully that's his purpose next year, and he's gonna go out there and do what he do best. That's play good football. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in with us during the
There's
middle of the
another thing
week.
here.
Huh?
Bobby Slowick agreed to a new deal to stay with Houston.
Oh yeah,
So,
they just dropped
hey,
that.
yeah, that's just more continuity with CJ Stroud. Like that team's going to be right back in it next year.
Yep. They're gonna continue to be a headache, huh?
Yep.
That's all good, you know. It is what it is. You say, hey, I waited like 37 years between the Colts and between Colts championships. This 16 years I'm doing on my head. Hey, man, I know you got a crazy theory out there, so just go ahead and spew it in the comment section. We'll look at it over. I'm pretty sure you got a good one for us. But we appreciate you guys for tuning in the middle of the week. We're gonna have more Senior Bowl coverage later on in the week, so you guys just gotta follow us on all social media platforms. Maybe eventually they'll get on the stream and talk Senior Bowl football with us, or for you guys to catch you up on some of the ballot guys out there making some noise. So you guys got to stay tuned, turning your notice. Appreciate each and everybody for tuning in. This is Culture Shock and this is Landon, and we are out.